Sweden is preparing, if you're reading the headlines,
Yeah.
a round of strict lockdowns. Oh my gosh, Sweden is moving
know.
away from its non-lockdown strategy and preparing strict new rules amid rising coronavirus cases. Now, these headlines appear contradictory because I'm also seeing headlines like this one about the elderly. So this is out of the BBC. BBC Sweden's isolated elderly urged to rejoin society. Okay, well, there's a contradiction. And in that article, it starts to talk about in Sweden, they're saying people over 70 and people in at-risk groups can basically just fall under the same measures everyone else in society can fall under. These people need to re-enter society. Their health chief, Johan Carlson, basically said that because of the physical and mental toll of this extended pandemic response, that these elderly people need to re-enter society because they're holding up an unfair balance of what's going on here. But let's look at the restrictions now. So how bad are these restrictions?
Yeah, because I mean, look, Jeffrey, people reached out to me. I saw news reports. That's it, Sweden. We knew it. We knew it was a failure. There it is. Now they're having to lock themselves down too. Sweden's going in lockdown, Del. What is the reality when you actually read deeper into, beneath these crazy headlines?
Yeah, and it's really that transparent. So let's look at the headline and then look at the quote. So Sweden, which refused lockdown during COVID first wave, imposes restrictions as cases soar. So this is a quote from Anders Tegnell. Speaking to Newsweek, Dr. Anders Tegnell, the chief state epidemiologist at Sweden's public health agency, who is behind the country's anti-lockdown strategy, said, the latest measures, is not a lockdown, but some extra recommendations might be communicated locally when a need from the regional authorities is communicated. So that's all that is. And then he says, local officials will have the authority to direct residents to avoid certain public spaces, including shopping centers, museums, libraries, swimming pools, gyms, and other sports facilities, sports matches and concerts. Regional authorities will also have the power to tell residents to avoid public transport as well as visiting the elderly and others that fall within risk groups. So it's all recommendations. These aren't backed by a law. These aren't backed by fines. These are recommendations. And I've also read some headlines saying you can't mingle with people that aren't of your own household. Basically, that's saying you can, but you just need to keep some distance. And this is just regional. So basically, they're looking at certain hotspots. If those things start to flare up, if you will, they can not impose restrictions. They can make suggestions that people should do this, people should do that. Maybe don't go to a concert. Maybe don't do this. But again, it's all just suggestions from the health authorities.
But to be clear, Sweden is in in Stockholm and certain places, there is an uptick in cases, correct? I mean, they are seeing a bit of a surge going into the fall, winter, I guess is what it would be there now. What does that look like? I mean, is it dangerous? Are there deaths? What are we talking about?
Well, I knew you'd ask that, so I had to pull the graph, and let's take a look at that. So we have a graph here, and the deaths are in black. The cases are the blue line that's going up and down. That's the dark blue line. Okay. And then a light blue line at the bottom are those admitted to intensive care. So you see the big surge in the middle starting around July 24th, peaking at the end of, June 21st, peaking at the end of June. But it's really the deaths and those admitted to intensive care, they've essentially flatlined. This is a linear chart. They've essentially flatlined. So we're seeing, the word comes to mind, a case-demic. We're seeing cases. And really, are these even cases if they're asymptomatic, if some of these people are asymptomatic? But we're seeing cases and not a lot of deaths. And that's really what this chart is telling us. So a lot of these headlines that are stoking some fear here, it's just cases, which we know leads to more testing. And that's what we're looking at.
There's the daily
That's
deaths.
what we're looking at.
Yeah, almost non-existent still. And I would imagine that they're increasing their testing, which is probably what's driving up cases. And again, we've talked about this before. Never before have cases been people that were asymptomatic. You usually have to have symptoms, but all of this is on its head. The science, we've absolutely changing the way the science is done. But it reminds me in Sweden, that's a big discussion. They are seeing rising cases in some areas. They're obviously still not locking down. Their economy's strong. They're open. In fact, I think there was a video we have of someone that's in Sweden that was talking about this issue. Why don't we take a look at this?
Saturday night in Sweden, full of people, no masks, no social distancing, just having fun. For a virus with a 99.7% survival rate, that's what you'd expect.
Amazing, right? I mean, the way the difference between the headlines and the reality on the ground. What is the reality in America, though? I mean, I've been seeing, we're having a similar panic, right, about a rise in cases. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's in fact that was an NPR headline. Coronavirus cases rise to the highest level since July. So again, we have the cases going up, and we can even look at these charts here. Daily new cases in the United States.
Yep.
You have the same kind of a similar rise almost to Sweden, as you're seeing the peaks in July, more cases going up, and then we look at the deaths, the daily deaths in the United States, and it's almost an inverse of that. So you're seeing that peak and then it just drops down. So we're seeing a little bit more at the end of October here, but nothing like what it used to be. And again, it's the cases, but are they really cases? In the past, those used to be described as people with symptoms that tested positive. So
Right.
really, what are we looking at here?
It's interesting. I was just saying to the team today, and I want to make this clear to everybody. We haven't locked down on any of our points of view. We are in a continued investigation of COVID-19 the way everybody else is. We keep bringing in specialists. And I think my thinking may be shifting a little bit when it comes to, I was upset. I think that Donald Trump, has made some misstatements, in saying, I saved you from 2 million cases. I'm not sure that's the case. I think that was basically bad, modeling by the Neil Ferguson and the Imperial model. But I am thinking a little bit about when we see all around the world now, when we're seeing these numbers, the deaths are coming down. We are seeing a bump up, especially the harder lockdown places are seeing some really large surges right now, which would make sense. The virus hasn't gone anywhere. But it really makes me wonder if we did, if America, when Donald Trump says, I saved you, he was the first one to really lock down travel from China. And I'm not sure whether I agreed with it. But it does make me think that potentially we did do some things right here in America, right? Originally, the idea of flatten the curve. Now, that was supposed to be 15 days. It's gone on ad nauseum, month after month after month. But when we see the deaths have gone down, I just wonder, do we have to give some credit to our government and the health departments to say, you know what, when this thing was first hitting, we didn't understand it. We were obviously treating it completely wrong by ventilating. And now you're hearing more and more doctors are now recognizing ventilators kill people with this. So we're hearing a lot more use of steroids, inhaled steroids. We had on Dr. Richard Bartlett. I'm hearing, across the country, but also increases in use of vitamin D, vitamin C, things like this. But we're taking them off the ventilators. And so when we're seeing the deaths go down, really the question is, and it hasn't been fully answered, but why are the deaths going down? And there's really only two things we would understand that I can think of. Number one, we're obviously treating it better. We're starting to find certain vitamins and high-dose vitamin D. Also treatments like Regeneron, which Donald Trump put up, and hydroxychloroquine. I know that though that's being banned in some places, other places are still using it and having a lot of success. And then the idea that naturally viruses do lose their, sort of mortality strength, or their ability to kill people goes down by the nature of natural selection and evolution of a virus. Both of those things, one of those things might be happening, but it makes you think, you know what? Maybe when you do get hit with a brand new virus that you don't understand, you slow down, you back up, you sort of say, everybody wear masks, lock down, let's see what this is. And now when we're seeing a surge, it's in a more natural position like any other cold, where we brought the deaths way down. People always die of colds, they always die of the flu, but now it looks like the death rate is more in that sort of sustainable space that these types of upper respiratory infections are. And so I'm kind of shifting my thinking and saying, you know what, maybe for a moment early on to really just brace ourselves, probably up until the point where Dr. Kyle Seidel came out and said, stop the ventilators, we're killing people. Right up into that moment, we needed time to understand what we're dealing with. Now that we do deal with this better, now I think I have serious issues with lockdowns. Well, why are we still locked down when the death rate is through the floor? We're obviously treating it better, and maybe the virus is even weakening. All those, anyway, I think those charts, and it's happening around the world, isn't it? We're seeing the same thing, a bit of a surge, but deaths are through the floor.
Yeah, and there's research showing this thing is mutated over 4,000 times. I've seen studies.
Wow.
So we're looking at all different types of factors that we didn't have that information when it first happened.
If you like that clip, then be sure to check out our live broadcast of the Highwire every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time. You can watch it on Facebook, iTunes, and Twitter. We'll see you there.